So there was this song that when I was in high school, I hated. And it's a it's a Stephen Still song. And there's a line in it that was, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. And my ideological, romantic high school self hated that line. Um, and uh, it kind of came up for me. Um, had the opportunity to be in a conversation with Seisan Roshi and Choa Sensei earlier this week, and um, the I think Seisan said something about working with the ingredients of our life, and so that led me into this whole sort of investigation um, of Zen Master Dogen's Tenzo Kyoken, which is instructions to the cook. And uh, it's exactly about working with the ingredients of our life. And in some ways, always loving the one we're with, whatever shows up. Um, Maybe not always loving it, but working with it. So I'm gonna hopefully not be boring, but in the interest of communicating, I think what's some really important, good information in a concise manner. Um, I'm gonna read you a little bit. So the two sources are um, uh, Tetsugen Bernie Glassman's book on instructions. The title of it is Instructions for the Zen Cook, a Zen Master's Lessons in Living a Life That Matters. And I just had a conversation with someone about living a life that matters. I was asking this person what they perceived to be the through line of their life. And I know for myself somehow, and it's maybe a bit neurotic, maybe a bit super, obviously idealistic, but having some type of adherence, attachment to wanting to live a life that matters. So this title in the book, and I'll later on share some comments that Seisan made about this from talks from her book. Um, but she did recommend that anyone who, because for any of us who aren't familiar with Dogen, we're talking 12th, 13th century Japan, extremely literate, extreme, like revered as a literary genius in Japan, and we are direct descendants of his. Um, and that his language can be it's quite poetic, it's quite can be confounding. And so Seisan was recommending this particular book by Bernie and Rick Fields, who I believe, I don't know if he started Yoga Journal, but he was certainly an editor of Yoga Journal and has passed on. Well, as Bernie has as well. So uh, she really recommended this book as a very accessible, a way to access Dogen's work. And so I'll just share that as well. I'm looking forward to kind of digging into it myself. So this idea of working with the ingredients of our life, and what does that mean, and what causes us not to want to. So here's from Bernie. When we live our life fully, our life becomes what Zen Buddhists call the supreme meal. This is so interesting as far as having done the Gate of Sweet Nectar this morning, or participated in the Gate of Sweet Nectar. It's all about the hungry ghost. And who's that? and all about um, how we address our hunger, how we address our hunger, and what really is what would actually be fundamentally satisfying. So Bernie says, when we live our life fully, our life becomes what Zen Buddhists call the supreme meal. We make this supreme meal by using the ingredients at hand to make the best meal possible and then offering it. The supreme meal is our own life, which is the greatest gift we can receive and the greatest offering we can make. One of the things that comes to mind hearing that again is I'm Jewish by ethnicity, and however, I grew up in a secular manner, and so I'm a very unschooled person of Jewish background. And one thing that I have been told is that our tradition, Jewish tradition, would be that the most important thing that we do is recognize the gifts that we are and have and share them. That's what we bring into the world. And I would assume those are considered to be God-given. So arriving from the great mystery or our true nature, our Buddha nature. And in our culture, I don't know if it's really all Western cultures. I think it seems certainly sort of endemically American, is that we're reluctant to appreciate the genuine treasure that we are and have. And there seems like we are epidemic in our tendency towards self-doubt, self-denigration, and what, kind of what sort of dangerous thing that seems to arise from that is that we seek power. We're very acquisitional materially, because we think we don't have enough. And so from this perspective, and from what Dogen is sharing with us, is always fundamentally we are whole and complete. Always we have everything we need. And it's radical. It's radical to really begin to dig into that. So Bernie goes on to say, Zen is the realization of the oneness of life in all its aspects. Zen is our life. It's coming to the realization that all things are nothing but the expressions of myself. This is the part I wanted to mention. The first principle of the Zen cook is that we already have everything we need. At every moment, we simply take the ingredients at hand and make the best meal we can. In a certain way, it's so completely obvious. We have and are and have at hand what we have. And Bernie goes on to talk about intention at some point, which I didn't write down. I would say like a rudder, in my experience in Zen practice, is that intention, for me personally, that's all I can say. Intention feels like the rudder. It's like, how do we want to live this life? And it's not really about, it's not aspirational in the sense of I want to accomplish this or that from a goal perspective, but it's how do I want to manifest? How do I want to appear? How do I want to be? And if the first principle of the Zen cook is that we have everything we need, and at every moment, it's simply using the ingredients we have. For what? Or, I thought about this recently, the, the, the pure precepts of our Zen precepts are do good for others, don't do harm. You don't do evil, don't do harm. And I was realizing, on some level, and to the best of my ability, that does feel like kind of the rudder. So if that's the rudder, then how do I use what's appearing right now to function in that kind of way? Do good for others. Don't do harm. So, we're not living in a Zen monastery, and these instructions were given. So the Tenzo is the cook in a monastic setting, and it's a very it's a high position. It's not a lowly position. But I was reading one of Seisen's talks about this last couple of days, and she was saying that her mom said to her at some point, "You're the cook? I didn't raise you to be a cook." She has a degree in biology from UC Berkeley, and very bright person. I didn't raise you to be a cook. But her mom just, she didn't know Zen positions. So a little bit more here. So this segues into what keeps us from working with the ingredients at hand. And so this is from Bernie as well. So in the Gata Sweet Nectar, the hungry ghosts are spoken about a lot. And I'm not going to have this picture exactly right, but the image is of these creatures with big swollen bellies and very thin necks, and they're starving because they can't get any nutrition. And I do believe that part of the story, or part of the metaphor, I'm not sure, is at some point they figure out, it's so touching, they figure out to pick up these long chopsticks and feed one another instead of trying to feed themselves. So the Gata Sweet Nectar is all about how we're offering our practice to the hungry ghost, which is us, and what cures our hunger. And Kosei, when she was officiating, we are the Buddhas. We're raising the Bodhi mind. We're raising the mind to our aspiration for awakening, and raising that Bodhi mind. Then we see, I am the Buddhas and they are me. So hungry ghosts were described as miserable creatures with swollen bellies and pencil thin necks, surrounded by food that they can't eat. And I don't mean this in a sort of guilt invoking way. Might sound that way, but we're always surrounded by the food of our life, by the richness of our life. And sometimes it's crappy richness. Sometimes it's somebody showing up this morning, bringing back things to my house that they're rejecting from their house because they're mad at me. Sometimes it's pain. Sometimes it's disappointment. Sometimes it's deep grief about the state of the world. These are still the ingredients. This is what we work with, what we be with, what we are nurtured by. It doesn't show up all as ice cream, and in my case, cabbage and cantaloupes, my two favorite foods that I pretend I could live on just that. So this is from Bernie. We are all hungry ghosts. It's a metaphor for the part of us that is unsatisfied, so caught up in conditioning that we can't accept or appreciate the food that is actually in front of us because of our attachments and conditioning. So this is basic Buddhism. Because of our attachments and conditioning, we miss the food and drink that's right in front of us. It all comes down to a very human habit. So this is the compassion. This is just how we are as human beings. It's nothing to feel guilty about or blameful towards ourselves. It's the part of the nature of being a human being. And it's also considered to be the best realm to be born into, because we have the opportunity to suffer and we have the opportunity to experience joy and gratitude and be awake to how precious this life is and what our true nature is. So it all comes down to a very human habit. We're always looking for something beyond what is right in front of us. Per Bernie, his great insight in hunger was some of us are literally hungry. Many, many, many of us in the world are literally hungry. And then some of us are hungry to stop eating. We're hungry for power, for fame, we're starved for love, and we crave enlightenment. And so, just as much as anything else, thinking that we're not whole and complete as we are, there's something missing. And Seisen goes on to, she's so candid. This one talk, I think it was still talking about the ingredients, but she was saying most often people come into Dokusan wanting her to confirm their understanding. And she said, I have no idea what their understanding really is. That's what they have to confirm to themselves. That's what we always, the satisfaction is only going to come from here. And I'm very guilty of wanting to be confirmed by others, wanting to be help somebody somehow, the great being in the world, to fundamentally tell me I'm okay. That's our hungry. That's my hunger. I think it's pretty common hunger. And that famous line of take the backward step that it turns our own light inward. So I'll just read you a couple of other things. And now this is from Seisen's, one of her talks from the book Full Circle, which we just have got this. Thank you to Kosei and Choa and Seisen. Just got this published. It's really, I'm really, really appreciating the Dharma talks in there. So this is one of her, it's ingredients number 1 is the talk. Our mind gets stuck in ideas of good and bad, judging and comparing. Do you regret you don't have other ingredients, or do you try to make the best meal with what you have right now? Each of us has a different set of ingredients we could call our karma. We're different sizes, we have different skills and flaws, we have different kinds of families that are and we're therefore have been given incredibly different circumstances. Our practice is about dropping the judgment and doing what's appropriate with the ingredients we're given. The bearing witness aspect of Tenzo Kyoken, the working with the cook, is being intimate with what our own ingredients are. Being intimate. Really opening up to them. Really even taking the time and curiosity to see what's here. So, one more quote: appreciating all our ingredients doesn't mean disregarding pain and grief. Bearing witness to joy and pain, it's bearing witness to joy, the joy and the pain of the world. Practicing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring suffering and hardship. It means we see our joys and our pains and everything in between as ingredients for us to make the best meal possible.